Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. Today we're checking out this mono-white tokens deck featuring Elspeth Stormslayer as our commander. This 5-mana planeswalker has an incredibly powerful passive ability which doubles all the tokens we would generate, which synergizes with its own +1 ability, now making a pair of 1/1 soldier tokens. The Seer ability can give our team a +1 counter as well as flying until our next turn, so that can be a great way to close out the game. And then the -3 is an additional way Elspeth can protect herself, if not by jumping with those soldiers, then by destroying an opposing creature with mana value 3 or greater. Then taking a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories, starting with a little bit of mana acceleration, since we are trying to cast a 5-mana commander. If it does get removed, we might have to replay it once or twice, so having additional mana to work with is always useful. And then we've got some additional removal to make sure that we deploy Elspeth once the board is somewhat stable, so we're not too far behind when we deploy Elspeth, so it's important to keep the opponent's most important creatures in check. Then we've got some additional card draw engines that will often draw cards when our tokens enter the battlefield each turn, so those can also add up over time. And then of course the largest category are the token makers, and we're often going for quantity over quality, trying to make as many tokens as possible with as little mana as possible. That way we'll get the most out of our doubling effect. And then we've got some additional planeswalkers that can also generate tokens, lots of other Elspeth planeswalkers. And then another very fun category are the token doubling effects, which in combination with Elspeth can perhaps quadruple the number of tokens we generate. And then the miscellaneous section has additional ways to put +1 counters on the team. And then our mana base also has a few lands that can activate to make additional creature tokens. So that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration, we have Chromox at 0 mana, imprinting a white card, so we can get off to a quick start. At 2 mana, there's Arcane Signet, Cold Steel Heart, Guardian Idol, Mindstone, Transformer, and the Iron Crag. I also like Heraldic Banner, giving all our white creatures 1 additional power. Skyclave Relic can also synergize with Elspeth, since it not only doubles creature tokens, but any tokens, so if we kick a Skyclave Relic, we'll get additional relic tokens. Then there's the Celestus, one of the better 3-mana ramp artifacts, alongside a Worn Power Stone, which can make 2 mana if we untap with it. And then there's Caged Sun, which is pretty useful in those longer games where Elspeth gets removed or countered once or twice, and we need to redeploy it with the additional commander attacks. Then Caged Sun doubles the mana produced by our white lands, essentially, while giving the team +1/+1, so still plays well in a tokens deck. Then our removal starts out at 1 mana with Laydown Arms, another reason to include lots of planes in our mana base. Swords to Plowshares, one of the staples in white. And then we also have a Get Lost at instant speed, dealing with creatures, enchantments, and planeswalkers. Ossification with plenty of basics to go alongside it, a great answer to opposing commanders, since they'll often go back to the command zone, so we don't have to worry about Ossification getting destroyed later in the game. We've got Skyclave Apparition, another versatile answer. And then we've got a few sweepers that can deal with larger stuff while keeping our smaller tokens alive. The Battle of Bywater can also maybe make some food tokens that can also get doubled by Elspeth. And then at 5 mana, there's the Expel the Interlopers, where we can choose a number and blow up the larger creatures. Then we also have the Conclave Tribunal, which we can often convoke simply by tapping 4 creatures, so that can be a free removal spell on the right turn. We've got Elspeth Conquers Death, quite fitting, can also get back Elspeth out of the graveyard if it does get removed, so sometimes we will not send it back to the command zone. Season of the Burrow can potentially make 5 rabbit tokens, so that's 10 rabbits with Elspeth out, but we can also kind of split it up, make a few tokens while still dealing with opposing non-land permanents. And then a Solitude we can also evoke by pitching a white card from our hand if we just need to deal with an opposing creature as soon as possible. Then we've got some card draw engines, often enchantments, with Caretaker's Talents, drawing a card whenever a token enters under our control, once each turn, but can also level it up, potentially pumping up our tokens eventually. Then there's Tokasia's Welcome, which triggers when a creature with mana value 3 or less enters each turn, so that also triggers off tokens. We've got a Wedding Announcement, which will initially make some human tokens. Once we start attacking with 2 or more creatures, can also draw a card end of turn, eventually turning into an Anthem, giving the team +1/+1. Welcoming Vampire triggers off creatures with power 2 or less entering, so that can also trigger off 4 Elspeth tokens, even if we have 1 Anthem effect giving them +1/+1. And then finally Enduring Innocence is kind of the better version of Tokasia's Welcome, as it's a 2/1 lifelinking creature, and even if it gets destroyed, it will come back in enchantment form. And then we've got our token makers starting at 1 mana with Allegiance Landing, especially if we can transform this into a Danto by attacking with enough creatures. We now have a land that can keep spawning additional life-linking vampires, can be very nice. There's Raise the Alarm making a pair of tokens at instant speed. Serve Exhibition does the same at sorcery speed. These are artifacts, sometimes that can have its advantages. We've got Skrelv's Hive making a Might token each turn at the cost of 1 life. There's the Birth making an 0/4 wall token, eventually getting a Plains and gaining some life. There's Hop to It making 3 Rabbit tokens for 3 mana, so still very efficient. Toby makes a 4/4 beast that cannot attack or block alone, and eventually gives our team flying as well. There's Adlin making human tokens when it attacks, so having these creatures that can make a token the same turn we cast Elspeth, those are especially valuable, so we can immediately take full advantage of that token doubling effect. Same with Brimaz making Vigilant Cat Soldier tokens when it attacks or blocks. Release the Dogs makes 4 1/1 dogs. There's Battle Screech making a pair of bird tokens, and this can easily be flashed back the same turn we cast Elspeth by tapping 3 untapped white creatures to make another 2 bird tokens, which now maybe get doubled into 4 tokens instead. Expertise makes 3 servos, letting us cast another spell with mana value 3 or less from our hand for free. Thousand Moon Smithy can make a large gnome soldier, which grows with the number of artifacts and creatures we control. Can also turn that one into a land, and then now if we cast additional artifacts or creatures, we can trigger it and make additional soldiers. There's the Warren Warleader, which we can maybe cast with Offspring for 6 total, making additional tokens or pumping the team. We've got Overlord of the Mistmoors, can also cast it with the Impending cost, making a pair of Flying Insect tokens, and can also spawn those when it attacks, so can also be very strong with Elspeth. Finally, Hemiria's Call can also be played as a land, or making a pair of 4/4 Angel Warrior tokens. And then Secure the Wastes we can cast at instant speed and sink as much mana into it as we have available, so that can also be a nice game-ending threat if we play it in the opponent's end step, untap, and then use Elspeth to give the team +1 counters and flying. And then our other planeswalkers include Archangel Elspeth, which can make a life-linking soldier token each turn. There's Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, which can make a 2/2 Knight ally each turn. Can also turn into a 5/5 creature itself with the +1, and that also sets up the -4 to make an emblem, giving our team +1/+1, so that's something our opponent wouldn't be able to interact with. Then there's a Wandering Emperor, which is also a removal with a -2 exiling a tapped creature, making additional samurai afterwards. And then Elspeth, Sun's Champion, can also be incredibly powerful, giving us potentially that one-sided board wipe with the -3, while generating additional soldier tokens with the +1. And then our token doubling effects start with Ocelot Pride, sadly 2 mana as opposed to 1, but still incredibly powerful once we get to the City's Blessing. Can also give it flying with Elspeth to make sure it can keep connecting and gaining life. Then there's Anointed Procession, pretty simple for mana enchantment. A Mondrak is a 4/4 creature, can pretty easily make it indestructible if we have some leftover mana and tokens. And then a Rabble Rousing doesn't quite double our tokens, but if we already have some tokens in play, we can attack with them and then generate that many citizens, also letting us cast a Hideaway card for free. And then the Deepest Foundation at 6 mana triples our tokens, a little difficult to get going, but once we do, it's a lot of fun. And then our miscellaneous section includes a little bit more interaction, with Curse of Silence trying to slow down the opponent's commander. A land tax is very good if we're on the draw, or against all the green ramp decks, putting additional lands in play, as we can ensure that we'll never miss a land drop for the rest of the game. And then a Treasure Map also benefits from Elspeth being in play, as we get to double the number of treasures we'll generate eventually. And then a Cathar's Crusade, a great finisher, giving our team a ton of extra +1 counters. And Virtue of Loyalty can start by making a 2/2 Vigilant Knight, and eventually can also give our team +1 counters and untap all our creatures end of turn. And then our mana base has plenty of planes. We've got Iganjo as additional removal, and then a Castle Ardenvale, Fountain Port, and Mirex are all relatively cheap ways to make additional creature tokens. And then we also have a Shafet Dunes, which can be sacrificed to give our team +1/+1. Can also maybe help close out the game. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play, facing Felothar, Dawn of the Abzan. So sacking stuff to give +1 counters, basically. And yeah, our hand seems functional. No mana acceleration, so that's the only drawback. Unless we can quickly flip Allegiance Landing. But I'll still cast it on turn 1. Might be able to chip in. Otherwise could have kept it for Solitude. Opponent does have an Inspector, so that already blocks our 1/1 and provides multiple things they can sack to the ability, so that makes a lot of sense. Alright. This will find us an extra planes. And then Brimaz may not line up all that well, so I might end up pitching it to Solitude. So we're just trying to hit our land drops, stall out the board, and then take over with a card draw from Enduring Innocence, perhaps. Taking 1 damage. Now we can attack back at least. So, Brimaz versus Enduring Innocence here. So our opponent's going to play it, sack a clue, give everyone +1 counters. Yeah, I don't think Brimaz is going to get a chance to attack. So I'll just play the Innocence. Opponent's got their own Solitude, perhaps. Yeah, and yeah, exiling Innocence is the perfect answer. So that's too bad. They pitched Wandering Emperor, also could have maybe exiled it. So we lost our card draw. Opponent makes the obvious play. I'll block. Don't necessarily feel inclined to pitch Solitude now. I'll take my draw step first. Find a Celestus. Yeah, I'll play Celestus, and then maybe I'll use Solitude in their turn. Depends what else they play. The Exemplar. Wouldn't be able to cast spells in their turn. And whenever 1 or more creatures with power greater than its base power deals damage, they get to draw. Yeah, I guess it's time to pitch Solitude now. Just go for the commander. And then next turn Elspeth doesn't have to worry about any trampling creatures at least. So if I chump, we prevent them from drawing a card. So we've got quite a bit riding on this Elspeth now. Could also just take out the Exemplar. Maybe that's the first move. And then I can just recast Elspeth next turn if they finish her off. Because if I made tokens, they were all forced to chump, basically. So not sure that really pulls me ahead. Would love to find another token maker that we can use alongside Elspeth.
Watch for my return.
Find a Wandering Emperor. Well, I guess now I could be convinced to just Emperor, exile the Lion Sash. And then wait a turn on Stormslayer. And we can play a map alongside it. And then by untapping with Emperor, I can play Elspeth potentially and immediately make those tokens. So that goes back to the battlefield, which means I wouldn't be able to cast Emperor in their turn. So that's annoying. I guess I'll just exile the Lion Sash now.
I am the Emperor of Kamigawa, and I will protect my people.
And then at least, if they deal damage to my Planeswalker, they don't get to draw.
This is what you get for hurting my people.
And then I guess there's no real upside to drawing and discarding. Opponent's got their own Enduring Innocence.
Until next time, then.
Just gonna take a draw step naturally, since Crying with Map doesn't let me play Elspeth. So I can now play Elspeth. Making tokens. She can take some damage, as long as we can keep her alive. Opponent sacking the Innocence, since they get the enchantment anyway. The Trampler we probably have to destroy, but yeah, it's tough. So I will now scry, looking for a token maker. Bottom that one. And a swords. Alright, swords we can also work with. So probably swords the Exemplar, destroy Felothar, take it from there. And then the Inspector we can block. So then our opponent's just hoping to find a creature to trigger Enduring Innocence. And we're in a spot where if we find a token maker we can pull pretty far ahead, especially once we transform a Legion's Landing. They did keep on top with Surveil. Our wall's also been doing a good job. And a case gets to draw. But no great attacks. Forgot to put my stop with treasure map, although I can still draw with the Celestus potentially. So let's start there. Would have drawn in other planes anyway. Activate Celestus. And find a Mind Stone, I guess that's a slight upgrade. And make some tokens. Pass a turn. And then next turn try and transform the landing. They can solve their case by just sacking the skeleton, which is what they'll do. And then I'll just jump with the wall so we can actually transform the landing. Once again, should have maybe put the upkeep stop. I keep forgetting. Alright, so now at least if I transform it, we do get double the treasures, so that's nice. Skyclave can answer maybe the Innocence, or just a Trampler. Yeah, that seems fine. So we'll draw into it. And then I don't need to waste any treasures to cast it. Play this now, so we clear a path for the tokens. Attack. Flip the landing, which I can activate in their turn. And Elspeth just keeps making tokens. Alright, now they can use the case to find a sweeper, but now that we have Adanto, we probably don't care. The treasures make it easy to recast Elspeth. So they might need to go for a powerful play that doesn't involve interacting with my stuff. I don't think they'll be running Massacre Worm, which would otherwise be pretty effective. But they might have a Toxic Deluge, for instance. Their commander now costs 9 mana, so probably won't see it in action here. And we can close out the game pretty quickly, while drawing 2 cards per turn. Alright, opponent going for Black Market Connections, or maybe that was their draw step. And 6, so possible we haven't seen the tutored card yet. So they might have gotten a sweeper that they're just waiting to cast at the right moment. I think we chump. Don't think we can present lethal here. If I make some tokens and go for +1 counter. And even though it costs us 3 treasures, I'm still tempted to activate Aldanto. Yeah, it's a close call. Maybe I should just wait. And then start by drawing. Can also sack the Mind Stone. Alright, Battle Screech. Can make some flying tokens. I think I will sack Mind Stone now. And Overlord, alright. Overlord's a bit better, because at least that might survive a sweeper. Or at least force a bigger commitment. And then Elspeth could just destroy 6. Just to get immediate value here. Attack. Could leave 1 token back to chump. In case they remove the Overlord with spot removal. And then, yeah, I'm not really inclined to wanna cast a Battle Screech, since we already have enough tokens in play. So we'll keep that to maybe refuel. But if they don't have a sweeper, they should just die next turn. Unearth 6, that's fine. And draw with Innocence. And Solitude, that's fine, so they can exile the Overlord. But I'm pretty sure they're still dead to the 0 ability. Especially if I activate Aldanto end of turn. They do have 1 reach creature. Inspector attacks. And that's why we left the soldier back. So yeah, 1 blocker. I don't think I need to do the math here, but I'm kind of curious what we would draw next. Just a ramp artifact. Alright, I guess just in case my math is wrong, we'll Battle Screech first. And then can flash back. And then use a 0 ability. And smash. And that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Helga, Skittish, Seer. So a ban to ramp. Could be a matchup that lets expel the Interloper's Shine as a way to catch back up. Don't have any mana acceleration ourselves. Yeah, this hand's kind of lackluster, even though expel the Interlopers could be quite good. This is a little bit better. We've got Birth into Celestus. And then we'll have to wait and see. Alright, now I'll go for Ocelot first. Try and get that going. Although we'll eventually be blocked by Helga. Can start by attacking. And then Celestus can also gain life. Birth can gain life to enable it. Opponent's going to bounce the Ocelot Pride, so we don't get to make a token. Fair enough, they had to use a Cyclonic Rift, which is one of the best cards against us. So don't really mind. And next turn we can still cast Elspeth, potentially. Opponent's keeping up mana for potential counter spells. And yeah, I guess this turn I'm not gonna tap out for Elspeth. Instead I could play Birth plus redeploy Ocelot. And then maybe ditch a Shefet Dune, since we'll get another land of Birth anyway. Castle seems more relevant. So yeah, let me start by casting the Ocelots. See if that resolves. And then cast Birth. Can go for a tap Timurios Call, don't think we need to cast it for 7. Have other ways to spend our mana. Our opponent reprieves the Birth, since they weren't gonna be able to stop us from putting Ocelot in play. And then we've already gained 1 life this turn, thanks to the Celestus, so we will get a token as it switches back to daytime here. And then Guardian Idol may not be all that necessary. Alright, opponent's still keeping up a counter spell as opposed to playing Helga. Although to be fair, Elspeth would just destroy Helga on the spot. But yeah, that's fine, we'll just keep going. Maybe with Mondrak, get that countered. Or we could play Smithy. Both are reasonable. Can still play Birth alongside it. So step 1, attack. That works. Yeah, I guess Mondrak's a must counter. We're also getting to the point where we're okay with Elspeth getting countered. But still maybe prefer double spelling. We'll try Smithy. And then, yeah, with Birth we get to the City's Blessing. So then we would double the number of tokens. So they kind of have to fight over this. Back to hand. But yeah, I guess I'll still get to the City's Blessing end of turn. So we'll get 2 1/1s. So we'll see if they finally commit to something or keep mana available to interact with Elspeth. It's gonna be Helga, tap land. And the Rabble Rousing is pretty exciting too. So if I can double spell, I should try, but I don't think that's quite happening. So, yeah, so many options. They don't have double blue, they could still have a wash away, I suppose. Could try Mondrak. Or we go for Smithy, which I can next turn transform. And our opponent already knew about the Smithy to begin with. And then with a transformed Barracks, we can maybe cast Mondrak to trigger it once again. That resolves. Alright, I guess no attacks this turn. A mana short of activating Celestus to gain life. So no doubled Smithy. Alright, Ilishnorn. That'll stop some of our triggered abilities, although Elspeth can try and take it out. And I will be transforming Smithy into Barracks. So I don't want to tap the Smithy itself. I guess Ocelot Pride is fine. And then now we've got some decent options. I'm guessing Elspeth gets countered, but then I can still cast Mondrak with the Barracks. Well, that actually resolved. So I'll just minus on Ilishnorn. Opponent's gonna flicker it. Fair enough. And then cast Mondrak. And then Barracks will happen twice now, thanks to Elspeth. This can attack for 11. I didn't leave myself with the spare mana to make Mondrak indestructible. Potentially a mistake. But we're set up pretty nicely for a Rabble Rousing. And there we have 10 39 soldier tokens, thanks to Mondrak, Elspeth, and Pride. So that's 8 tokens all at once. Opponents already cast their Cyclonic Rift, so hopefully there's no River's Rebuke here, for instance. Or some other board wipe could be bad. Mythweaver you can have. We can just fly over it with Elspeth next turn, but they might have a follow-up. Well, I guess they did not. Awesome. So this wasn't a quadrupling, but an octupling of our creature tokens. Pretty sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Nicol Bolas, so Grixis control. Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup. This hand probably doesn't cut it. Don't need lay down arms. Our cards are a bit too pricey. I would like to see some ramp. On the play, land tax is not at its best, but it might actually get a chance to trigger since we're kind of low on lands ourselves. And then we've got Heraldic Banner for ramp. Can activate Mirex. I'm gonna wait on Secure the Wastes until we build up our mana a little bit more. Bono keeps up 2 mana. Well, if they have a mana drain, I'm gonna be sad. I think I still try Banner. Could also hop to it first, and then Banner can pump up the tokens, but this way we can maybe set up Elspeth next turn already. Still have Swords to Plowshares up, just in case. Yeah, could just exile the Aven. So Elspeth can start making tokens, as opposed to needing to minus, which would still be a valid play. And with Banner, they hit quite a bit harder. Do have to watch out for sweeper effects, but that's where the instant speed on Secure the Wastes can come in handy, or the end of turn Mirex activation. Opponent just spending 4 on a Baleful Mastery. So back to the command zone, but we can still progress our game plan with a Celestus. And then I could either hop to it or activate Mirex. And then save this until after we deploy Elspeth once again. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I guess the Mirex token doesn't get pumped by Banner, so it's not quite as exciting. But I'm afraid that if I cast a Rabbit token maker, a board wipe would set us back too much. I guess it would maybe clear a path for Elspeth if we draw the land. Or I guess even without a land we have 7 mana next turn. So yeah, maybe it was worth it. Opponent's now gonna steal the Banner. So we will still need to draw land. But we did. So replay Elspeth. Could go for the 0 ability. So we can make some flyers. I think making tokens is still better. And then maybe next turn I can 0. Opponent trades, so there might be a sweeper incoming. I guess we also have to watch out for Nicol Bolas dealing 7 to a Planeswalker. So that could also finish off Elspeth. But then our tokens could finish off Nicol Bolas. Ooh, Sheoldred's Edict, so yeah, they found another answer to a Planeswalker. And it's getting increasingly more difficult to redeploy. Still gonna play the planes, even though we're not setting up our own land tax that way. But now I can set up a big Secure the Wastes end of turn. If they tap out for their commander. I'll discard Hop to it, so we still have the mana to cast Elspeth. So then Secure into use a 0 ability could win the game. Key to the Archive. I don't think there's any sweepers they can find off of it. So then the question is, do I cast this in response so they cannot find a counterspell with it? Or do we play around a potential 3 mana sweeper that they might still have in hand? There's no sweepers for my deck that we have to play around. So I think I do Secure for 7 here. So now if they find a counterspell, it's not as bad. They ditched the Lootmonger. And it's going to be a Legion's Landing, that's fine. Still 2 mana up. And a Demonic Tutor. Alright, so now they're tapped out. So Elspeth should just win the game, assuming they don't have any free interaction. May as well. Sadly have to say no to the Deepest Foundation. That resolves. And this should be more than enough. Alright, sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Ugin, Eye of the Storms. Yeah, get used to this commander, because it's going to be everywhere. Our hand's not bad. With Curse we can slow down Ugin, and Heart sets up Overlord into Elspeth. And may as well play this now. And then I'm gonna make sure to name the right Ugin, since there's a few now. Possible they can remove my enchantments, but it's not straightforward for a colorless deck. And then possible we can wait to deploy the Overlord now that we drew Banner. So we can just cast it for 7, which can close out the game a little sooner. Moonsilver Key can get the Monument, which is pretty scary once they get it online. But yeah, Skrelv's Hive I guess is a good pickup. So we keep the burst of tokens until after we deploy Elspeth, but this can kinda slowly make tokens turn after turn. They're also colorless, which is relevant against Ugin, since that can struggle to exile colorless permanents. Transmogrifying Wand, that's fine. Yeah, holding Curse to potentially name something like the Monuments could have been worthwhile, but we've been using our mana so far. So yeah, I think it's Elspeth, and then start making tokens. The Raceway is at least not the land that produces additional mana. So opponents likely going for Monument. Yep. So they can cast it now and then next turn reap the rewards, potentially casting Ugin through it. So then they're probably gonna be able to exile the Overlord and Elspeth at the very least. Hangerback stays back. Well, I think we just gotta make the most out of Elspeth while we still control it. Which means cast Overlord and maybe use the Zero ability. Although I guess just going wide might also be worthwhile, since we control the banner to pump up our creatures. I think still casting Overlord is reasonable. Because the opponent can cast Ugin, and then still potentially 2 colorless spells afterwards. So that would deal with Elspeth, Overlord, and probably the Hive. I need to deal 25 damage, while our opponent's also gaining a life with a Monument. A Wand can also destroy the Overlord, so it's possible that I should just impend it here. And then we can still cast the Exhibition. Just go as wide as possible. Pump up the team. Smash. And then if they remove Elspeth, I can still redeploy it and zero again. Because yeah, there's no real sweepers in the colorless decks. There's no 8 mana Ugin to worry about. All is Dust is not on Arena. And there we have it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Juri, a red-black sacrifice. Our hand's not exciting, but functional. Having swords for interaction helps. And then we can maybe set up our treasure map to transform once we have Elspeth in play to double the treasure tokens. Epicure can stick around. We'll play the map. And then Skyclave could answer Juri. It's gonna be a Plunder instead. So that will give us a treasure. Could still exile it with the Apparition, since a treasure might benefit the opponent more than it does benefit us. Although it would ramp out Elspeth. So, yeah, close call. Maybe I do just play this tapped Activate map. And then I can swords, and then next turn I can already cast Elspeth. Opponent's got Judith, so that's a good target for swords. Or we could swords the Plunder, and then Elspeth minuses on Judith, but then they could finish off Elspeth as a problem. So in that case, I might wait on Elspeth for another turn, let the Plunder attack me, and then just swords Judith. Although we'd have to be careful, because the Plunder can eventually deal a lot of damage to us if we transform the treasure map. So we'll scry. And then don't need more lands. Yeah, I'll just take my draw step. Find Gideon. Gideon could be good, although we do have to watch out for the Menace also finishing off some of our Planeswalkers. So I still don't really mind going Apparition, activate map, and then next turn I can play Elspeth, immediately transform the map. So then we probably want to have dealt with the Plunderer. So yeah, that extra treasure token is actually going to be quite valuable. But our opponent also has one more mana. Starts with Yuri. And Fable. Okay. So we get to scry bottom of plains. Take my draw. Cast Elspeth. Transform treasure map. Make 6 treasures. And I'll keep an Innocence on top. So then now I could keep up Wandering Emperor as opposed to going for Gideon, which is also reasonable. Start making some tokens. Because if we can exile Yuri, that's maybe a cleaner solution. And then next turn I can play Innocence, start making tokens with Gideon perhaps. Or we can hang on to our treasures. Forge is good at pressuring Planeswalkers. So we'll see how aggressive they get. Alright, all-out attack. In that case, it's probably fine to play the Emperor, and then could also just make a token before blockers, because then we'll get 2 of them.
You started this fight, but I'm going to end it. Keep watch for intruders.
So we can block, trade. Yuri could still grow. So that one I might want to just jump with a 1/1. Eat the Epicure. Yeah, that looks okay. And our opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. Next turn, as we've said, we draw Enduring Innocence, I can cast it. Play Gideon, potentially making allies, drawing with Innocence. Emperor could make more Samurai, which also get doubled. And then we might already be thinking about giving the team flying with Elspeth to close it out, since we'll have amassed quite a few tokens. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Elenda, Saint of Dusk. So, maybe a life gain deck. Our hand seems alright, could use a bit of ramp perhaps, but I'll keep it. Announcement into Smithy, can start producing tokens. Giver of Runes can protect Elenda. And can also maybe attack past our monowhite blockers. And Smithy also generates a white artifact creature, so that can also be relevant for Giver of Runes. The sidekick can grow their creatures, I guess. So could also release the dogs and then immediately convoke Tribunal afterwards. Veto is also pretty scary, but cannot take out Veto while they control Giver. And then next turn I get to play Elspeth. Still get the benefit from announcements. Could also try and destroy Elenda with the -3. So it's going to be a Voice of the Blessed. And an attack. Alright, let's just go with obvious play. Can also use a Zero ability here, which might be worth it. Our creatures will fly until next turn. So then I think I only attack with 1, so that we still get the tokens from announcements, since those will get doubled by Elspeth. And then our creatures will get +1/+1. They did have Planeswalker removal, sadly, so don't get double the tokens, but at least I'm glad I used the counter mode. So back to the command zone. Now we only get 1 token, so attacking with 2 would have drawn us a card. And now Shieldred's next. Shieldred we can maybe destroy with the minus eventually. Well, a Rabble Rousing now makes me want to just go for it. Could also take a slower approach with Smithy, transform it next turn, but then I need to cast artifacts or creatures. It is a way of kind of ramping out Elspeth again, or we can just Rabble Rousing, see what the Hideaway finds, and then we might just trigger it right now. Well, these are all pretty good options. Power 3. Say I'll take Sun's Champion. Attack all out. We'll get a bunch of replacement tokens, cast Elspeth. And then Elspeth can clean up Voice and Shieldred, basically. Or we can keep plussing if we want to keep her alive. Opponent's at 11. Trigger Veto, trigger Voice. So the -3 means we lose Elspeth to the sidekick, but we deal with Voice and Shieldred. Or I can plus make more tokens. I think we just cash her in.
I must act as a leader.
Vona. Destroy target non-land, non-token permanents. Takes out Elspeth. Surprised I didn't just attack it. But, yeah. Opponent's at 12. This does not have lifelink. So they seem pretty dead to me. And, in fact, I could also give my tokens flying here. So that'll make it even easier. Trigger Rabble Rousing once again. And that'll do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Gonti, Knight Minister. So we can expect some evasive creatures and then plenty of interaction as well. This hand's not particularly exciting, is it? Take a mulligan. This is a bit better. So I can play a turn 2 either Transformer or Idol. Maybe setting up a Stram's Expertise, playing a free Brimaz. Opponent starting with a 1/1 Death Touch. At least our tokens line up decently well against those Death Touch creatures. It's mostly the flying creatures we're worried about, since those can enable Gonti and steal our spells. And yeah, there's the Swiftwing. At least they're not hitting us incredibly hard. So we'll still need to draw land for expertise, otherwise I guess we'll play a Celestus. It's gonna be an observer. So they get to see my hand, exile something. Alright, so that's pretty effective. Eventually, Season of the Burrow might be able to remove it. And they do take the expertise. And drew the land, so I could still release the dogs. But yeah, that's not gonna stop the flyers, so may as well just keep on ramping. And then could play Elspeth, could maybe Season of the Burrow to stabilize first. Bojuka Bog enters tapped, so no Gonti this turn. And they are keeping up mana, so I'm not incentivized to run out a Planeswalker that they might be able to destroy. Brimaz, I also don't have very high hopes for it surviving. So actually, I think I discard it, keep the land. Overlord's a bit more exciting. And in fact, I can cast it for 7. So then if they have removal, they're probably going to use it, but I'll still have the leftover flyers to get in the way of at least the Observer. This one does have first strike. And if they don't remove it, next turn with Elspeth we get to attack and double the tokens. And yeah, it was a Shieldred's Edict, so that would have cleaned up Elspeth as well. Before we even made an extra soldier token, so we only would have gotten 1. Opponent goes all out, I will take the trades. So Swiftwing triggers, but we also get a card back from the Observer. And it's Toby. And they found a land, we find a Raise the Alarm. So I can play Elspeth minus on Gonti. And then still Raise the Alarm, get double the tokens. And then Elspeth still survives a Swiftwing attack. Not sure if I should main phase Raise the Alarm, or maybe wait until end of turn. Kinda depends whether they have a sweeper for my tokens, or instant speed removal for my Planeswalker. But yeah, if we get to untap with Elspeth here, things are looking up. Skull Dweller is fine. And a Swarm. Alright, so not the most terrifying set of creatures. But those are important to enable Gonti in the first place. Make 4 tokens. Can probably ditch the land, and our opponent knows about Release the Dogs and Season, so we could make 1,000,000 tokens here and take over. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Yorion, Sky Nomad. So, very powerful commander. This hand is fine to start out, just gotta hope to find more token makers along the way. But yeah, if Yorion gets going, it's gonna accumulate a lot of value very quickly. Also gotta keep counter spells in mind, but they don't have a lot of blue mana. And we do have a lot of ramp, so that's nice. Theo Shield Mage making its own tokens. They can later flicker the Planeswalker to re-enable it. I get to play Celestus into Elspeth and start making tokens. And then next turn, Srime's Expertise could be effective. Celestus ensures that we can discard lands we no longer need. But Mirrex is still a good mana sink. A Metamorph can potentially copy something we control. Goes for Power Stone. And Blade Splicer I can put in play with the Expertise. Now the hope is that there's no board wipe in our future. But I'm gonna try this. Put in Blade Splicer, can still activate Mirrex in the opponent's turn perhaps. And Elspeth Probably just keeps plussing. Could also use his Seer ability now, so we can finish off Teo. Could have activated Mirrex before giving everyone counters, but that's maybe weaker in the face of a sweeper. Alright, let's see what happens. And yeah, next turn using the Seer ability should just present lethal. So they need a board wipe. They have 7 mana, so that's enough for Overload Cyclonic Rift. Alright, it's going to be an Invasion of Ravnica instead. Probably going for our commander, activate Mirrex in response, and then next turn we can still recast it even with the commander attacks, use a Seer ability, and that's going to be more than enough. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Brawl, Crackling Wit, blue-red, kind of storm tokens. Our hand's got potential. This Mind Stone's going to do a lot of heavy lifting to set up turn 3 Gideon, which, if you've played Standard back when it was around, is a pretty strong card, good at pressuring opposing planeswalkers as well. Mind Stone resolves. And the Goblin Electromancer can stick around for now. Could actually consider using Solitude, just because with Gideon we're pretty far ahead, so I want to preserve that advantage. Yeah, maybe that's worthwhile, just pitch Wandering Emperor, so they don't get to go off. But maybe I'll wait, like, Electromancer doesn't ramp out Brawl, maybe they'll cast something scarier. Alright, Prismari Commands is pretty good here, admittedly. So now we're set back on mana. Still have our Gideon. Now I should maybe Solitude just to make sure they don't burn out Gideon with a burn spell. And then still pitching the Emperor, I think. Since Get Lost can answer Brawl if we're unable to take it out with our creatures. Yeah, losing Mind Stone hurts. At least it doesn't seem like the Electromancer had a huge impact on their turn. Gideon probably just rumbles in for 5. And then we can still Battle Screech. And wait to flash it back until we deploy Elspeth. Drawing the land was useful. So I'll take one more of those. And then we can also emblem while keeping Gideon alive if needed. So the sequence I'm hoping for is to land into Elspeth, make some tokens, flashback Battle Screech. But alright, I guess I'll take a Caretaker's Talent instead. If that resolves, Gideon will make a token, draw a card. And then the Talent can also level up.
I can do this.
Finding a land tax, not doing much at the moment. So, probably prefer leveling up. Could target the flyer in case they have removal for the 2/2. Alright, that works. Still gonna wait to flashback Battle Screech. And it's gonna be iteration into maybe a bolt. Play with fire. So at least Gideon still survives.
That was a good hit.
Now we can also decide to get this to level 3. Opponent did have a sweeper for our creatures, so luckily they cast it before we found our Enduring Innocence. Otherwise, they would have exiled it. Now I can play Innocence to draw 2, maybe that's still worth it, as opposed to trying to draw 1 card, hoping for a land.
My strength will carry us through.
Alright, won't be able to play Transformer. Probably fine to play a land tax now. So we're both struggling to hit our land drops, but we're pulling further and further ahead now. Opponent passes, so they probably have a counterspell in hand now. I can still try Elspeth. If they counter it, I'll be able to replay it in a few turns. If it resolves, great. So activate Gideon, make 2 knights, and then I could flashback Battle Screech, making even more birds. Elspeth, happy to make soldiers. They might have another sweeper in hand for all we know. So I could play it conservatively and not flashback the Screech. Yeah, maybe that's reasonable, because if they don't have a sweeper, next turn they're in trouble anyway, if we cast a Rabble Rousing. But yeah, opponent scoops it up, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Marwyn, so mono-green elves. A deck that can go off, and we don't have any sweepers to really punish them for it. Chromox is kind of exciting, but I don't have a follow-up ramp artifact to set up an earlier Expertise or Elspeth. Pretty far from casting a Cage Sun, so I don't think this is good enough. Need to find removal for Marwyn. This hand's very similar. Iron Crag might be a slight improvement actually. Still don't like it. Alright, this I can try. We've got Ossification for Marwyn. Transformer for ramp, maybe keep Adeline, since it's pretty good at attacking into smaller elves. They've got the Utopia Sprawl, so we already have 2 Ossification. Turn 2 most likely. But that's okay, at least we're not getting a run over. And playing Adeline on 3. Maybe Talent on 4, level up, it's still a reasonable curve. Opponent sent it back to the command zone, so it's now 5 mana. So we're at least 2 turns away from Marwyn. And in the meantime, we can get our tokens going. Elves into boots. No land drop, also important to note. I think we still try Adeline. Even though Transformer could already cast Elspeth. If they don't have the spare mana to equip the boots, Elspeth could maybe minus to take out Marwyn. So yeah, now they would be tapped out. So yeah, playing Transformer would have maybe worked out better, although we got rewarded with a Swords to Plowshares. That's a great draw. So now we exile Marwyn, play Talent, attack, draw a card. And if we hit a land drop, we can cast Elspeth. So finding those cheap removal spells was incredibly important. Otherwise we might have gotten buried by some huge green spells. Alright, fair enough. Reclamation Sage can blow up the Talent, but it already drews a card. Ossification also not a great target anymore. And having something that can produce a token the same turn we cast Elspeth is also quite valuable. Alright, so no land for Elspeth. I guess we go for the guaranteed 5 mana through Transformer as opposed to maybe hoping for the best. I guess with Announcement I get to draw if I attack, so that's maybe still worthwhile. Since we can also attack with a 1/1. Although it does seem like they might have an instant up. Now if I draw land I wouldn't be able to play it yet, but it's good enough if we have it for next turn. And then Announcement is another way we can make an extra token right away. Alright, still nothing. That's where these 2 mana artifacts that enter untapped are so much better, because we could have gone Transformer into Announcement otherwise. Mentor can also go wide, but probably can't keep up with Elspeth. And now we finally get to Deployer. Reasonable to just make more soldiers. And then next turn maybe use a 0 ability. Don't care about taking out the Mentor in case they have a way to protect it. Just Adeline attacking, so Announcement is also guaranteed to make more tokens. So we're just going max tokens here, basically. Yeah, I think they might be able to make their team indestructible. Alright, just a trade. I'll take it. End of turn, make 2 more tokens, since we technically only attacked with 1 creature. The tokens entered tapped and attacking, so those don't count. And then now Elspeth should be able to close it out. And speaking of Elspeths, yeah, I think we just release the dogs. And then give the team flying. Can't think of too much that can go wrong. High Stride. Yeah, a deck built around Marwyn often has a bunch of these pump spells, so you can untap Marwyn, keep making mana, and kind of go off from there. So once again showing why it's so important that you have removal for it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, and it's the mirror match. So having Crow Mox and Banner should give us an advantage. Don't have to play Mox on 1, since we might want to wait and see if we need to keep late on arms or can pitch a different white spell. I guess we do get punished by like an Esper Sentinel, potentially, if they're running it. But I'll wait. Alright, Guide of Souls, so late on arms could still be useful. So this turn I could Crow Mox, pitching Elspeth, cast Banner, late on arms the Guide, because just giving their team flying could be annoying. And then next turn we're already casting Elspeth, and then hopefully find more token makers afterwards. Can always activate the castle. And then our white creatures get 1 extra power. So our hand's on the table pretty much. Opponent's got 2 lands in play, hopefully we'll have an Elspeth soon. Ooh, Curse of Silence I was about to say, unless they have a curse or one of the white counter spells. And yeah, Curse is gonna slow us down. Our entire game plan revolved around our commander. Our opponent seems to have a few other tools available. At least I can still activate Castle. But yeah, we're now 2 turns away from casting Elspeth. So our opponent's gonna quickly catch up. Evangelists. Also pretty decent. Speaker attacks. Alright, I'll take that trade. Alright, so it's just a waiting game here. But next turn we can play Elspeth, so I guess we're still playing it before the opponents. Those flying bats are annoying. Invasion at least cannot exile Elspeth. So that doesn't do much. And our opponent has to consider if they want to attack here with the Evangelist. Yeah, not gonna lie, the bat tokens are gonna be problematic, since they can get pumped by Elspeth as well to help finish off our commander. I guess Elspeth would give tokens flying anyway. But I think it's still worthwhile, and then we just plus make 2 soldiers, up to 6 loyalty, so we're not dead to an attack, and then with the Virtue of Loyalty we can do some fun things. We'll see if they sack the curse. They don't, so they might have removal for Elspeth, which is bad news. At least I can play the Knight token and the enchantment in the same turn. Opponent will be transforming the invasion, makes sense. So that can also grow the team. So if they attacked Elspeth, they're probably not destroying it here. And they might be missing a land for their Elspeth. Announcement will draw instead of making a token. Alright, so our plans potentially to give the team flying now, so we can protect Elspeth a little bit better. Is that the case? I mean, I'm definitely making a knight here. And then casting the enchantment, probably better than activating castle, although that's actually debatable. So then do we go wide and probably lose Elspeth next turn? I think making our creatures fly is more important. And then with the Virtue, they're going to be a little bit larger, so the blocks maybe line up better. So we can go ahead and attack. I guess I should have pumped my creatures first. So missed out on a little bit of damage. End of turn untap. So we can block those bats now. And then next turn just keep spamming tokens with Castle and Elspeth. Yeah, the flying only lasts for one turn, however, so we'll have to wait and see. They could also have a sweeper that they're trying to combine with the array, making their team indestructible. That could be quite backbreaking. Tokasia's Welcome is more card draw, that's fine. And Serve Exhibition will draw. Make a pair of servos. But yeah, no great attacks. Ooh, and Sun's Champion now too. Alright, that's exciting. So play it. Plus to make tokens. And our opponent scoops it up. Sweet. So double Elspeth gets it done. And yeah, we got to see this monowhite tokens deck in action. A lot of fun to play. Can definitely have some polarizing matchups at times. If you're facing blue decks with lots of counter spells and mass bounce effects, you're gonna have a bad time. Some creature decks can also be a little too fast for your planeswalker to stick the landing. But against other kind of more mid-rangey decks that rely on spot removal and even a few sweepers, we're usually okay, since Elspeth can keep repopulating the board, so we don't really mind if our opponent's got a board wipe or two, as long as we get to keep our planeswalkers and other enchantments on the battlefield. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's gameplay. Wanna thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.